Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. I have brought something very special for you. Today's story is about power, discipline, and big dreams. Imagine growing up in a small, crowded apartment with very little money. Imagine being a small boy who was often bullied. Now imagine that same boy becoming one of the most powerful leaders in the world. Sounds unbelievable, right? In this video, we will explore the life story of Vladimir Putin. You will learn how his early struggles, strong mindset, and clear goals shaped his future. This story will motivate you to stay strong during hard times. It will remind you that challenges can make you stronger. At the same time, this video will help you improve your English listening skills. I will use simple and clear sentences so you can understand easily and learn naturally. Before we start, don't forget to subscribe our channel, Learning English Level 3. Your support means a lot to me and encourages me to create more powerful stories for you. Now, stay with me until the end, because this journey from a small boy to a global leader is something you don't want to miss. Let's begin. Early life in Leningrad. Vladimir Putin was born on October 7, 1952, in the city of Leningrad, which is now called St. Petersburg, Russia. He was born into a simple and poor family. His early life was not full of comfort or luxury. It was a life of struggle, hard work, and survival. Putin grew up in a small apartment building. The building was old and crowded. Several families shared the same kitchen and bathroom. There was very little privacy. Life was not easy. His parents worked very hard to support the family. His father had served in the Soviet Navy during World War II. He was later injured during the war. His mother also worked hard and faced many difficulties. Leningrad had suffered greatly during World War II. The city was under siege for almost 900 days. Many people died from hunger and cold. Putin was born after the war, but the pain of that time was still fresh. The city was rebuilding itself. Food was limited. Jobs were not easy to find. People had to stay strong. As a young boy, Putin lived in this tough environment. The streets were rough. Many children had to learn how to defend themselves. Putin was small in size, but he was strong in spirit. He did not want to feel weak. He wanted to protect himself. This environment helped shape his personality. He loved stories about spies and heroes. He admired strong leaders and brave soldiers. From a young age, he dreamed of serving his country. He was curious and serious. He liked to observe people. He liked to understand how things worked. At first, he was not the best student in school. He was active and sometimes mischievous. But as he grew older, he became more focused. He understood that education was important. His teachers noticed that he was intelligent and disciplined when he wanted to be. His early life taught him many lessons. He learned that life is not always fair. He learned that strength is important. He learned that survival requires courage. Living in a small apartment with little comfort made him value discipline and control. Putin's childhood was not easy, but it built his character. The difficult streets of Leningrad made him tougher. The hard-working example of his parents taught him responsibility. The history of his city taught him about sacrifice and strength. Early life often shapes a person's future. In Putin's case, growing up in post-war Leningrad created a strong and determined mindset. He did not grow up with wealth or privilege. He grew up with challenges. And sometimes challenges are the best teachers in life. His story reminds us that where you are born does not decide where you will end up. Even if you start in a small home in a difficult city with limited resources, you can still dream big. You can still build strength. You can still prepare yourself for something greater. The boy from a small shared apartment in Leningrad would one day become one of the most powerful leaders in the world. But his journey began in a simple place, with simple beginnings and strong determination. Childhood struggles and learning judo. Vladimir Putin's childhood was not easy. He grew up in a rough neighborhood in Leningrad. The streets were tough. Many boys fought to show strength. If you looked weak, others might bully you. Putin was small and thin as a child. Because of this, some boys tried to push him around. He did not like feeling weak. He did not like being afraid. Instead of giving up, he decided to change himself. This decision became very important in his life. At first he would sometimes get into fights. But he soon understood that fighting without skill was not smart. He needed discipline. He needed training. He needed control. That is when he became interested in martial arts. When he was about 12 years old, he started practicing Sambo. Sambo is a Russian martial art. Later he began training in judo. Judo became very important to him. It was not just a sport. It became a way of life. Judo taught him many lessons. Taught him that size does not always matter. Even a smaller person can defeat a bigger opponent with the right technique. It taught him to stay calm under pressure. It taught him to think before acting. Training was not easy. He had to practice many hours. He had to repeat the same moves again and again. Sometimes he lost matches. Sometimes he felt tired. But he did not quit. He kept going. Through judo he built confidence. He became stronger both physically and mentally. He learned self-control. He learned respect. In judo you must respect your opponent. You must follow rules. You must bow before and after a match. These small actions build discipline. His coaches saw something special in him. They noticed his determination. They noticed his focus. He was not just fighting to win. He was fighting to improve himself. Judo also helped him stay away from trouble. Many young boys in rough neighborhoods can choose a bad path. But sports gave him direction, gave him purpose, gave him a goal. As he improved, he began winning competitions. These victories made him believe in himself. They showed him that hard work brings results. Nothing comes for free. Success requires effort. Putin later said that judo shaped his way of thinking. In judo, you must use your opponent's strength against them. You must wait for the right moment. You must stay patient. These ideas influenced how he handled challenges later in life. His childhood struggles became a source of strength. Instead of feeling like a victim, he chose to grow stronger. Instead of complaining, he trained harder. This part of his life teaches an important lesson. We all face struggles. We all face moments when we feel small or weak. But we can choose how we respond. We can give up or we can improve ourselves. For young listeners, this story is powerful. If someone doubts you, do not let that stop you. If life feels hard, do not run away. Find something that builds your strength. Could be sports, music, study, or any skill. Putin's journey with judo shows that discipline can change your life. A small boy who once faced bullies became confident and strong. And this strength stayed with him for the rest of his life. School years and love for discipline. During his school years in Leningrad, Vladimir Putin began to change in important ways. When he was younger, he was active and sometimes careless about his studies. He liked adventure. He liked excitement. But as he grew older, he started to understand that his future depended on education and discipline. At first, Putin was not known as the top student in his class. He had energy and strong opinions. Sometimes he got into small troubles. However, something inside him slowly changed. His training in judo helped him focus. Martial arts taught him self-control. Taught him that progress comes step by step. He began to take school more seriously. He listened carefully in class. He paid attention to his teachers. He worked harder on his homework. His grades improved. His teachers noticed that he was intelligent and capable. They saw that when he focused, he could do very well. One subject that interested him was history. He was curious about his country's past. He wanted to understand how Russia became strong and how it faced challenges. He also liked reading stories about spies and intelligence officers. These stories made him dream about serving his country one day. Putin was also serious about rules. In school, discipline matters. You must arrive on time. You must respect your teachers. You must follow instructions. Because of his judo training, he understood the value of these rules. He believed that discipline creates order, and order creates success. His friends and classmates began to see him as confident and determined. He was not loud or showy. Instead, he was calm and observant. He liked to watch and listen before speaking. This habit later became an important part of his personality. In his teenage years, he set a clear goal. He wanted to work for the KGB, the main security agency of the Soviet Union. This was a big dream. It was not easy to join. Only educated and loyal citizens were accepted. So he understood that he needed strong academic results. This goal pushed him to work even harder. When you have a clear dream, your actions become stronger. He studied with more purpose. He prepared himself for university. He believed that education was the first step toward his dream career. His school years show an important lesson. No one is perfect at the beginning. Sometimes students struggle. Sometimes they do not take things seriously. But change is always possible. Growth is always possible. Putin's life during this time shows that discipline is a choice. You choose to wake up early. You choose to study. You choose to improve. Success does not happen by accident. It happens because of daily effort. For young people watching this story, remember this. Your school years are important. They build your future. Even if you are not the best student today, you can improve tomorrow. Focus, practice, and discipline can change your path. The young boy from Leningrad understood this truth. He turned his energy into focus. He turned his dreams into goals. And step by step, he prepared himself for a much bigger stage in life. Studying law at university. After finishing school, Vladimir Putin took an important step toward his dream. He applied to Leningrad State University to study law. This was one of the most respected universities in the Soviet Union. Getting accepted was not easy. Students had to pass difficult exams. They had to show strong academic results. Putin worked hard and earned his place. In 1970, he began his university journey. He was about 18 years old. University life was very different from school life. Students had more freedom, but they also had more responsibility. There were harder subjects. There were higher expectations. Putin chose to study law because he believed it would help him serve his country. He was still interested in joining the KGB one day. A law degree could open that door. So he took his studies seriously. Law is not a simple subject. It requires strong reading skills. It requires clear thinking. It requires understanding rules and systems. Students must read many books. They must study legal codes. They must learn how governments work. Putin spent long hours studying. He learned about Soviet law. He studied international law. He studied how states interact with each other. He also learned about political systems and government structures. These subjects helped him understand power and authority. At university, he was known as a disciplined student. He was not famous for being loud or social. Instead, he was quiet and focused. He observed people carefully. He chose his friends wisely. He stayed close to people who were serious about their future. During these years, he also continued practicing judo. Even with a busy academic schedule, he made time for training. This showed his strong discipline. He did not give up the habits that built his character. Sports and study worked together to shape his personality. One important moment in his university life was meeting Professor Anatoly Sobchak. Sobchak was a respected law professor. He later became a major political figure in Russia. Putin admired him and learned a lot from him. This connection would later help shape his political career. University is not only about books. It is also about building networks. It is about meeting people who can influence your future. Putin understood this. He built relationships that would help him later in life. In 1975, he graduated with a law degree. This was a proud moment. It was the result of years of effort and focus. His education gave him knowledge, gave him confidence, gave him new opportunities. Soon after graduation, he achieved his goal. He was recruited by the KGB. His dream from his teenage years became real. His hard work paid off. This part of his life teaches a powerful lesson. Education can change your path. When you study with purpose, your chances grow. When you connect your studies to your dreams, your motivation becomes stronger. For young listeners, this is important. University may seem far away. Law may seem difficult. But success begins with preparation. It begins with effort. It begins with discipline. The young boy from a small apartment in Leningrad had now become a university graduate. Step by step, he was building his future. And this was only the beginning of a much bigger journey. Joining the KGB. After graduating from Leningrad State University in 1975, Vladimir Putin reached an important moment in his life. His dream of joining the KGB was about to become real. For many years, he had admired intelligence officers. He saw them as disciplined, brave, and loyal to their country. Now he had the chance to become one of them. The KGB was the main security agency of the Soviet Union. It was powerful and secretive. Its officers gathered intelligence, protected state secrets, and watched for threats against the country. Joining the KGB was not easy. Only trusted and capable people were selected. Putin was recruited shortly after finishing his law degree. This showed that he had strong academic results and a good reputation. But joining was only the first step. He still had to go through training. KGB training was serious and demanding. It required mental strength and physical fitness. Officers had to learn how to collect information. They had to study foreign languages. They had to understand politics and global affairs. They were trained to stay calm under pressure. Putin's background in judo helped him a lot. He was already disciplined. He was used to hard training. He understood the importance of patience and control. These qualities were very important in intelligence work. First, he worked in Leningrad. His tasks included counterintelligence. This means watching for foreign spies and protecting important information. The work was quiet and careful. It required attention to detail. It required loyalty to the state. In 1985, Putin was sent to East Germany. This was during the Cold War, a time of tension between the Soviet Union and Western countries. East Germany was an important place for Soviet intelligence. Putin worked in the city of Dresden. Life in East Germany was different. He lived there with his family. His job was to gather information and support Soviet interests. The work was not always dramatic like in movies. Much of it involved paperwork, reports, and meetings. But it required focus and secrecy. Then came a big change. In 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. This event marked the beginning of the end of the Soviet Union. Protests and political changes spread across Eastern Europe. In Dresden, angry crowds once gathered near the KGB office. Putin later said that during this time, he saw how quickly power can disappear. He saw how a strong system can suddenly collapse. This experience left a deep impression on him. It taught him about instability and weakness. In 1991, the Soviet Union officially collapsed. The KGB was dissolved. Putin returned to Russia. He left the intelligence service as a lieutenant colonel. His years in the KGB shaped his thinking. He learned about strategy. He learned about loyalty. He learned about the importance of state power and control. This chapter of his life teaches an important lesson. Sometimes we dream about something for years. When we finally achieve it, we must be ready to work hard. Success is not only about reaching a goal. It is about performing well after reaching it. Putin's journey into the KGB shows determination and preparation. He set a goal in his teenage years. He studied law. He trained his body and mind. And step by step he reached his dream. This was not the end of his story. It was only the beginning of a path that would later lead him into politics and global leadership. Working in East Germany. In 1985, Vladimir Putin was sent to work in East Germany. At that time, the world was divided by the Cold War. The Soviet Union and the United States were rivals. East Germany was controlled by the Soviet Union. It was an important place for intelligence work. Putin was assigned to the city of Dresden. He worked as a KGB officer. His job was to gather information and protect Soviet interests. He worked closely with East Germany's security service, known as the Stasi. Life in Dresden was quiet but serious. His work was not like action movies. It did not involve car chases or dramatic fights. Most of his days were spent reading reports, writing documents, and meeting contacts. Intelligence work often requires patience and silence. He had to be careful with every word. He had to protect secrets. He had to watch for possible threats. This kind of job builds strong focus. Teaches you to think before you act. During this time, Putin also improved his German language skills. Living in a foreign country helped him understand different cultures and ways of thinking. It gave him international experience. He saw how politics worked outside the Soviet Union. Putin lived in East Germany with his wife. They built a simple family life there. He was not yet famous. He was not yet powerful. He was simply an officer doing his duty. But history was about to change everything. In 1989, protests began to grow in East Germany. Many people wanted freedom. They wanted change. The government was losing control. On November 9, 1989, the Berlin Wall fell. This event shocked the world. It marked the beginning of the end of communist rule in Eastern Europe. In Dresden, angry crowds gathered near government buildings. One day, a large group of protesters came near the KGB office where Putin worked. It was a tense moment. The system that once seemed strong was now weak. Putin later spoke about this time. He said he tried to call Soviet military officials for help, but no clear orders came. He realized that Moscow was silent. The powerful Soviet Union was no longer in control. This moment deeply affected him. He saw how quickly power can disappear. He saw how a government can collapse when it loses strength and unity. This experience shaped his views about leadership and stability. In 1990, Putin returned to Russia. Soon after, in 1991, the Soviet Union officially collapsed. The country he had served for years no longer existed. It was a time of confusion and uncertainty. Working in East Germany gave Putin important lessons. He learned about international politics. He learned about crisis situations. He learned how fragile power can be. This part of his life teaches us something powerful. Change can happen suddenly. Systems can fall. Plans can fail. But strong individuals adapt. They learn. They prepare for the next step. Putin returned to Russia with new experience and new understanding. He had seen history change with his own eyes. These lessons would later influence his decisions as a political leader. From a quiet officer in Dresden, he was about to enter a new chapter. The world was changing, and his own journey was about to change too. Returned to Russia after the Soviet Union collapse. In 1990, Vladimir Putin returned to Russia from East Germany. The country he came back to was very different from the one he had left. The Soviet Union was weak. Change was happening everywhere. People were uncertain about the future. In 1991, the Soviet Union officially collapsed. This was a historic moment. A superpower had fallen. The red flag was lowered from the Kremlin. A new country, the Russian Federation, was born. For many people, this time was painful. The economy was in trouble. Jobs were lost. Prices increased quickly. Savings disappeared. Many families struggled to survive. There was confusion and fear. The system that people had trusted for decades was gone. Putin had spent years serving the Soviet Union as a KGB officer. Now that system no longer existed. The KGB was dissolved. His career in intelligence had ended. He had to decide what to do next. Instead of giving up, he adapted. This shows an important lesson. When life changes suddenly, we must change too. We must look for new opportunities. Putin began working at Leningrad State University. He worked in the International Relations Office. His job was to handle foreign contacts and build partnerships. This role was very different from intelligence work. But it helped him enter a new world: politics. Around this time, he reconnected with his former professor, Anatoly Sobchak. Sobchak had become a leading political figure in St. Petersburg, which was the new name for Leningrad. Sobchak believed in reform and modernization. He saw potential in Putin. In 1991, Sobchak became the mayor of St. Petersburg. He invited Putin to join his team. Putin accepted the offer. This decision changed his life. He became responsible for external relations for the city. He worked on attracting foreign investment. He negotiated agreements with other countries. He helped manage economic projects. Russia was going through a difficult transition from communism to a market economy. Corruption was rising. Crime was increasing. The government was unstable. It was a challenging environment. Putin worked quietly and carefully. He was known for being disciplined and loyal. He avoided public attention. He focused on completing tasks. He built strong connections within political circles. These years were like training for a bigger role. He learned how government works from the inside. He learned about economics and public administration. He learned how to handle pressure during unstable times. Returning to Russia after the Soviet collapse was not easy. It was a time of loss and uncertainty. But it was also a time of opportunity. New leaders were emerging. New systems were forming. This chapter of his life teaches a powerful lesson. Sometimes when one door closes, another opens. The end of his KGB career pushed him toward politics. The collapse of a country created space for new leadership. For young people listening to this story, remember this. Life will not always go as planned. You may lose a job. You may face sudden change. But you can adapt. You can grow. You can find a new path. Putin's return to Russia marked the start of his political journey. From a former intelligence officer, he was becoming a government official. Step by step, he was moving closer to national leadership. The country was changing, and so was he. Entering politics in St. Petersburg. After returning to Russia, Vladimir Putin stepped into a new world. He moved from intelligence work into politics. This change was not simple. Politics requires public responsibility, decision-making and leadership. But Putin was ready to learn. In the early 1990s, Russia was facing serious problems. The economy was weak. Many factories were closed. People were losing jobs. Crime was rising. There was confusion in the government. It was a time of great uncertainty. Putin began working under Mayor Anatoly Sobchak in St. Petersburg. Sobchak trusted him. He gave Putin important responsibilities. Putin became head of the Committee for External Relations. His job was to build connections with foreign countries and attract investment to the city. This was a big task. St. Petersburg needed money and business opportunities. Foreign companies were unsure about investing in Russia because the country was unstable. Putin had to negotiate carefully. He had to represent the city with confidence. He worked long hours. He studied contracts. He met business leaders. He traveled abroad. He focused on bringing economic growth to the city. His calm and disciplined style made him stand out. He did not speak loudly. He did not seek attention. He simply worked hard. During these years, he learned important political skills. He learned how to manage people. He learned how to make tough decisions. He learned how to balance different interests. Politics is not only about ideas. It is also about strategy and relationships. St. Petersburg faced many challenges. There were shortages of food and supplies in the early 1990s. There were accusations of corruption in different parts of the government. The political environment was intense. Mistakes could damage reputations. Putin stayed loyal to Sobchak. Loyalty became one of his strongest qualities. Even when Sobchak faced political difficulties, Putin remained by his side. This loyalty later earned him trust from other leaders. In 1996, Sobchak lost his re-election campaign. This was a turning point. Many members of his team lost their positions. Putin could have stepped away from politics at this moment. But instead he moved to Moscow. In Moscow, he joined the presidential administration under President Boris Yeltsin. Step by step he rose through the ranks. He worked in different government roles. Each position gave him more experience and more influence. Entering politics in St. Petersburg was the training ground for his national career. He moved from local government to the center of power in Moscow within a few years. His steady progress showed patience and ambition. This chapter teaches an important lesson. Big success often starts small. Putin did not become president overnight. He started in local government. He handled small tasks before larger ones. He built trust over time. For young people, this is powerful. You do not need to begin at the top. You begin where you are. You learn. You grow. You prove yourself step by step. Putin's journey into politics shows the importance of preparation and patience. The skills he learned in St. Petersburg helped him later as a national leader. What started as a local government job became the foundation for something much bigger. His path to national power had truly begun. Becoming president of Russia. By the late 1990s, Vladimir Putin had quietly risen through the ranks of Russian politics. After moving to Moscow, he worked in different government positions. He served in the presidential administration. Later, he became head of the Federal Security Service, which replaced the KGB. In 1999, he was appointed Prime Minister of Russia by President Boris Yeltsin. At that time, Russia was still facing many problems. The economy had suffered a major financial crisis in 1998. Many people had lost savings. The country was struggling. There was also conflict in the region of Chechnya. People wanted stability. They wanted strong leadership. Putin was not very well known to the public at first. He was seen as quiet and serious. But he spoke firmly about restoring order and strengthening the country. His strong responses to security issues increased his popularity. Then, on December 31, 1999, something unexpected happened. President Boris Yeltsin resigned. In his resignation speech, Yeltsin named Vladimir Putin as acting president. Overnight, Putin moved from prime minister to the highest position in the country. This was a historic moment. A man who had grown up in a small apartment in Leningrad was now leading the largest country in the world. In March 2000, Russia held a presidential election. Putin ran as a candidate. He promised to rebuild Russia's strength. He promised stability and economic growth. He won the election and officially became president of Russia. As president, Putin focused on centralizing power. He worked to strengthen the federal government. He aimed to reduce the power of regional leaders. He wanted more control from Moscow. His goal was to create order in a country that had faced chaos during the 1990s. During his early years as president, Russia's economy improved. Rising oil and gas prices helped the country grow. Wages increased. Poverty levels decreased compared to the difficult 1990s. Many Russians felt life was becoming more stable. Putin also worked to increase Russia's role in global politics. He wanted the country to be respected on the world stage. He met with world leaders. He spoke confidently about Russia's interests. He aimed to restore national pride. However, his leadership has also been controversial. Some critics say he limited political opposition and media freedom. Supporters argue that he brought stability and strength after a difficult period. His presidency has shaped Russia in powerful ways. In 2008, he stepped down due to term limits but remained influential as prime minister. In 2012, he returned as president. Over the years, he has remained a central figure in Russian politics. This chapter of his life shows how preparation meets opportunity. For years, Putin worked quietly in government roles. He gained experience. He built trust. When the moment came, he was ready. His journey teaches an important lesson. Leadership does not happen suddenly. It is built over time. It requires patience, discipline, and readiness. From a young boy practicing judo to the president of Russia, his path was long and challenging. Becoming president was not the end of his journey. It was the beginning of a new and powerful chapter in his life. Leadership, power, and global influence. When Vladimir Putin became president, his role was no longer local or national only. He became a global leader. His decisions began to affect not only Russia, but the entire world. From the beginning of his presidency, Putin focused on strengthening the Russian state. He believed that a strong country needs strong leadership. He worked to increase the power of the central government. He reduced the influence of some regional governors. He aimed to create unity and control. During the early 2000s, Russia's economy grew, mainly because of high oil and gas prices. Russia is one of the world's largest energy producers. As energy prices increased, the country earned more money. This helped improve living standards for many citizens. Wages rose. Cities developed. Infrastructure improved. Putin often spoke about restoring national pride. After the difficult 1990s, many Russians wanted stability. They wanted respect from other nations. Putin presented himself as a strong and confident leader. His speeches were firm. His actions were decisive. On the global stage, he worked to expand Russia's influence. He built relationships with countries in Asia, the Middle East, and Latin America. He also had complex relationships with Western countries like the United States and members of the European Union. Over time, tensions grew between Russia and some Western nations. Issues such as NATO expansion, cybersecurity, and regional conflicts created disagreements. In 2014, Russia annexed Crimea from Ukraine. This action led to international sanctions and criticism from many countries. In 2022, Russia launched a large-scale invasion of Ukraine. This event had a major global impact. Many countries strongly criticized the action. Sanctions increased. Political tensions rose. The conflict continues to shape international relations. Supporters of Putin say he defends Russia's interests and protects national security. Critics argue that his leadership limits political opposition and media freedom inside the country. His leadership style has been described as firm, strategic, and highly controlled. No matter what opinions people hold, it is clear that Putin has had a powerful influence on global politics. He has been one of the longest-serving leaders in modern Russia. His decisions have shaped the direction of his country for more than 2 decades. This chapter of his life teaches complex lessons. Leadership brings responsibility. Power brings pressure. Every decision can affect millions of lives. Being a global leader means facing constant challenges and criticism. For young listeners, there is an important message here. Leadership requires preparation. It requires mental strength. It requires the ability to stand firm during difficult times. But it also requires wisdom, careful thinking, and understanding the impact of your actions. Putin's journey from a small apartment in Leningrad to global influence shows how far determination can take a person. His story includes struggle, discipline, ambition, controversy, and power. History will continue to judge his actions and leadership. But one thing is certain. He has left a strong mark on the world stage. His life reminds us that leadership is not simple. It is a path filled with challenges. And every leader's story becomes part of history.